All right, hello, I'm Nathan Mesler. This is Blocker Duncan. I'll be conducting our post-observation conference. So I came in last week and observed you during fifth period, I believe, and that was your econ class. The seniors, y'all were handing out, you were doing your food truck project that was tying in concepts from the first, from this whole semester, because this is a semester-long course. And so I want to talk about some stuff. The things I was looking for is I was looking for your routines, like classroom routines, how you start the class, like how you're handling, just normal everyday things. We're looking at that because this was tying into our talk last semester during our coaching session about some issues you were having in class, but that was freshman level.
Right.
This is kind of a different, I hate to say it, different ball of wax. It's similar, but there's such a difference in maturity. We discussed that. But I was also looking at their behavior, the interactions between you and them. I was kind of looking for things like that, and that's what we were discussing most about. We talked about, like, your pre-conference, a lot about the struggles that we had last year and what we learned from that, the lessons we learned. So I was looking to see the implementation of those things for this observation. So I'm going to go into a couple things. I'm going to go first and do some things that I thought were really good. You had a couple kids that like to be distracted. I think in your back, from your point of view, back left corner.
Yes.
I know one of them, Theo, because I had him in class, and his little group over there, they like to be super distracted. It seems like they're very chatty, very social. I would say your front right is also social, but they're not as loud. And I feel like you focused, that's where your attention was bouncing between those two groups. I felt like you redirected Theo's group, the back left group, quite a bit. You first used name drop, which is cool. Like you were cold calling, or you were using someone's name. I think Sebastian was a particular interest. That's who I took note of. But then you used proximity, which I thought, those are all classic strategies that we use for distractions. And I thought that was very good because, like, it redirected them, but you did it in a non-confrontational, light way and plus they're older. They get it. Like, they knew, and they were joking around with you, which I felt like there was a level of comfort with y'all's interactions. No one was, get like anything like that. Like, I mean, how did you feel like that? Like, is that a normal thing that they're usually distracted?
So it's pretty normal, but once I get them settled down, then they lock in and perform.
Okay. So, how are they? Are they some of your stronger students, mid, all over the place? Like, it just depends on the kid.
I feel like they're all over the place, but for the most part, like, that class actually has like the highest averages in school.
That's
that
cool.
I have in my classes.
That's good. All right. Well, I mean, I felt like that was spot on, like how you were handling them and doing stuff. It felt comfortable, felt natural. It didn't feel forced. So in terms of what your struggles that we talked about last year and things that were going on, I didn't feel like, I don't know. It's just, this is where we get into the philosophical side of things, and we joke around about it and we make a lot of it as secondary teachers, is that there's a difference between freshmen and seniors. And there's a maturity level. And there's a certain thing is, like, your seniors kind of learn how to navigate the system, whereas your freshmen are a little more rebellious and like to push back and push boundaries. Seniors realize, like, hey, I just want to do my work and get out of here.
Right.
So, like, I get there is some of that going on, and maybe that was the case with these kids, but they were really chill, they were laid back. But I felt like you handled trying to redirect them very well. Other things was, I felt like you were trying to tie in to, like, some of the concepts that you were doing. Like, you were trying to tie into previous things, and you were going through the presentation and you were trying to let them know what your expectations were and what they were having to do.
Right.
Now, I will say, I felt like it was a little disjointed. I felt like when you were going through it, you kept referencing, like, you kept, I think I wrote in here, like, see right here, and, like, you're pointing at your paper, but you had it pulled up on your screen. And so, like, I felt like another thing you could have done was you could have, like, pointed to the screen and had it pulled up here, and that way everyone knows exactly what you're talking about. Instead of see right here is vague. Like, you're talking about something and they may not be following where you're going, but if you look, he's talking about that. So I felt like that's just a little thing, but it's one of those things is, like, because I'm trying to follow along as I'm doing it, because you had handed me one of the handouts, and I'm like, I was having trouble, and I was just like, well, if I'm having trouble, like, Jesus, I'm like, so it was something like that that's, like, we sometimes forget, and, like, I don't know, like, Did you feel nervous because I was in there? Like,
No.
okay,
No,
all right,
no, we're good.
okay. Because I was just like, I didn't
No,
know if
but
that was
that
like causing
monitor-
like the little like disjointedness or.
No, it's the monitor. I've had problems with it since I've been here.
Okay.
And it's
I
I
mean-
have to do screen share, so I actually should have just had my mouse with me
Right.
and scrolled through with it. So
Well, it's just one of those things is we don't think about it, and something like, I know for me, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, if that's my first class for that class of the day, like,
It is. It
then
was.
they usually get the worst of me. You know, because I kind of like make my missteps with that period. Whereas the next period, I'm like, oh, I learned a lesson from
Yeah.
that period, and you fix it for the next period. It kind of stinks for them, but like that's kind of
They are the first.
that's your first econ class.
Yeah, because teaching the 3 preps, it's
I know that can be, you got to switch your mindset, and that can be challenging. But I felt like with overall classroom management and behavior, I felt everything was good. The kids were paying attention, or at least they weren't distracting themselves. There weren't cell phones out. There weren't Chromebooks out. They had the sheet in front of them. They were engaged. They were looking at you, at least for the most part.
Right.
I do feel that your center group, like, so if you're looking, you have your left group, because yours is kind of like a
Right.
fan.
Yeah.
Your left group, your center group in back, they don't engage with you. At least what I saw. They didn't engage.
Right. It's
They
the
didn't
outside.
talk. That they and then a lot of, I saw some, back in the back kind of picking their nails and kind of like, their body language, if you could just kind of glance at them, looks like they're paying attention, but if you actually pay attention, they're off in la la land.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where extending that cold call, or like asking someone like, hey, hey Sophie, do you remember unit 1 we were talking about this? Okay, so like this is that part when we were doing this and you did really good on this, like gathering her attention, but you're bragging on her, but it gets her back into the conversation. That's where kind of like that, what we call name dropping, and doing that, but you're doing that to like, hey, I see that you're distracted, but I'm going to do this in a kind way and redirect you back. So I think using that a little bit on them and kind of noticing. I know that group on your left is going to demand a lot of your attention because they feed off of attention, right?
Right.
Let's be real. I had a couple of those knuckleheads. They feed off attention. So you got to also be wary of that. Like sometimes don't feed into that. But I get that those are the kids, when you ask a question and you're waiting, those are the ones that are answering, right? Because
Right.
they don't like the uncomfortable
It's
silence.
like a double-edged sword. It's like,
It is.
yeah, students get more attention, but like that class gets a lot and they get a lot out of it because there are a lot of kids that are definitely willing to speak and they're comfortable enough in front of the class. A lot of those kids can talk.
Right. And I mean, I have Joshua in class.
Mm-hmm.
He was off to your kind of middle left.
Yeah.
And Joshua seems like, I don't know how he is for you. He seems like a strong student for me.
He is.
So he may be one of those that's just quiet and reserved, and he handles business, pays attention. Okay, cool. But by now, because we're into November, like these kids, who your struggling kids are. So those are the kids if you see that they're not on task, they're not focused in, like just doing those little like things to kind of like get their attention, and even using proximity with them. Like when you're talking about it, like pull it up and be like, okay, here, this is right here. This is talking about supply and demand. Supply and demand was, I think you were talking about that was 1 or 2 or something like
That's
that.
the first thing we go
Okay,
over.
so like, and be like, okay, so, I'm gonna go over here. Hey, Sophie, like, can you explain to me what we mean by, okay, what is supply? Just give me a quick definition. Do you remember what that was? Hey, Johnny, like, okay, what is demand? Okay, so like, we're just going back to stuff, guys. So make it, and then tell everyone like, hey, make a note right now, right off to the side of this, unit 1. So like, if I need to go back and review, so then everyone has something to do besides just listen to you
Right.
and sit there quietly. They actually take a pen out, they're moving, that gets some of that nervous energy out, and it also gets them to snap out of if they're zoned out. So like, it's little things like that. And again, I'm nitpicking. I'm just like looking at certain little things. I was on, but that was kind of like what I noticed from that. Now, I will ask, I didn't follow why you switched to showing the McDonald's video, because I understand y'all doing a food truck. Okay, so it's tied food-wise. But McDonald's was talking about being efficient, like that. The clip that you showed was talking about efficiency. and I didn't understand how that tied in. Now maybe you explained it better after I left because I was only in there. I wasn't there for the whole time. I missed the last.
So we
10 minutes
talked
of
about it
class.
afterwards, and we talked about how so on the front of the packet, there's a section that talks about like profit and different things like that, and it talks about like the end goal of the project is actually on the front where they have to go in and figure out how much they profited. So the idea was like when they're making these things, like they're making a conscious decision of, hey, how efficient can I make my food truck? Because a lot of the kids actually now looking at, they're turning them in, there was a lot of kids that went into the negative on their prices.
So all right, but I see. You're just trying to you're talking about McDonald's trying to be as efficient as possible.
Right.
And you're trying to look at it from that point.
So
but
we emphasize it like the movie, like in the movie, the founder, like they go in and it was like this restaurant that had all these different items and they lost all this money, but then they broke it down to something as simple as like we talked about Cane's and how they knocked everything out and they just did chicken. There's 4 things on their menu. And that's why we emphasized and kind of.
Okay. Because I think you mentioned that early whenever you started.
Reiterated that.
Right. And so okay. So I think that's what was disjointed for me. You were talking about that with Cane's, and you were talking about using Cane's is a good example because they simplify their menu, right?
Right.
Like simplification, getting one product to somebody means that you have less prep work. You can do it in bulk. You can buy in bulk, which means you can drive your prices down. Like less ingredients, less prep time, all these things. That means you're keeping your costs at a minimum.
Right.
Because then you can talk about cost per unit, and you can draw that out. It's like, okay, well, it costs me, if I'm making 100 of these, it costs me, and I'm selling them for $5, it costs me $1.25 a unit. Whether that's a burger or chicken strips or whatever. And so what can I do to keep those costs down as much as possible? Because that's just selling it. That doesn't take into account the labor cost. What's my labor cost on top of that? I can't be the only one doing it. If I'm taking orders, who's cooking? Who's prepping? Who's cleaning? Who's doing all these things? Because you got to have that flow. And then also you got to think about your space. You may sit there and line out your jobs, and that's where I think you could have tied it into McDonald's. And I hope I'm hoping you did. I missed that part. He specialized everybody, so that way they weren't bumping into, and that's kind of interesting. Looking at that. But it was just one of those things. I was a little disjointed with it. I was like, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
But I did like one thing though. You talked about pricing. And when you priced it, you compared and you used a very interesting thing was actually using the app, McDonald's app, and pricing versus over here by our school and then going to our sister school, Spring Woods.
Right.
And whereas we're more, but I think they missed the point that we're more affluent over here. So they charge a different price based on your location.
Right.
And then that's where, I don't know if you went back and talked about that. I'm hoping you did tied into where are you going to set your food truck up at?
Right.
Where,
we did talk about that. I give them some examples. When I lived in an apartment complex, they had food trucks come out, different things, and we talked about the food trucks that get here.
Did you use other food trucks as examples? Because I know for us we do that food truck Friday, and one time we had the Maine lobster roll people come, right?
Okay, so I don't remember. Were you in class? So we talked about the McDonald's thing, and then you left, right?
I left. Yeah.
Okay, so we did watch. We actually showed them, and they actually engaged on this a lot more, and we had a big class discussion, and then they broke in their groups on that day.
Cool.
But we actually watched the Shark Tank pitch for Maine Lobster.
Oh, y'all did?
We watched.
Funny that I brought that one up.
And the kids really liked it, and then we actually pulled it up, and I was showing them, they were actually, from the time we're doing this video, they were in Belleville this weekend.
So the main one I bring up is because when we had it here, it's priced in terms of pricing, right?
It's expensive.
So it's expensive, but that's the point is they're wanting to sell fewer quantity at a higher price point because it's so much prep and so hard to get there. Right. Whereas you're using, I know you used the MDUMC, whenever they're making their burgers. Right. Well, they buy in bulk. They buy in bulk from Sam's or Costco, all their frozen patties.
And we talked about their tax write-off because they're
There's other ways they can keep their costs down. There's different ways that they can do and leverage that. But they want to do bulk. They want to do as much as possible
Right.
because they're going for quantity, not quality, and so their price point's lower. So that's how they make their money, is based on the quantity they sell. Whereas something like Maine Lobster does it on quality and going on higher price point with lower quantity sold.
Right.
And even though they both could be just as equally profitable.
And I think they just crossed $1 billion of total sales a few years ago.
Yeah.
Maine Lobster.
Yeah, I mean, they've expanded to several cities. So, no, and I just, it was good. Like, I think that from like tying everything back, like me starting to nitpick the lesson, like I'm not trying to it's just, those are trying to give you helpful ideas, like
Right.
things that I saw. And I'll be honest, like, I ran into this the other day. I was actually I was doing a project also in my astronomy class, and I was working with my partner, and she came up with the project, and we had gone over it together. But I wasn't as comfortable, and I should have sat back down with her prior to giving it, because I felt like I was a little disjointed with what I was doing.
Right.
And like some of the stuff I didn't understand exactly what I was asking for, because it wasn't in a format that I was used to. And I felt like, I don't know, you and I talked about this before, and we tried to talk about this last time in our pre-conference, but while we were filming that, one of your partners came in here, so I didn't get to ask some questions. But we had talked about this off camera, is that, there's some things you want to do different in this class, right?
Right.
And I felt like whenever I was reading this project and I was watching you as you were going, it's not designed it's not the way that you would want to have done it. You would have changed some things, right?
Yeah.
Like,
The graphs were kind of confusing. A lot.
Mhm.
That's where the bulk of the help was, the quantities and the price and things like that. Like if I were to go in and do it next year, if we do the same thing, possibly. Oh, I guess not next year. Well, technically it'll be the spring.
Next semester.
Next
Yes.
semester, then yeah, we'll definitely change it, because I think there's a disconnect on the supply and demand part.
Well, and
Because
that's
we're
the thing is,
confused
like,
about.
I want you to be empowered enough to know that you can. I know I gave that presentation at the beginning of the year, and I talked about the hard conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard walking in as the new guy on the team and saying, like, hey, like, I don't think this is working. Like, I would like to change something. And be like, there's different ways, because you gotta figure out that dynamic between you and those guys and the other guys. And I mean, we both know both the guys. Like, I mean, we've all known each other for years, but like, that's a hard dynamic, walk into an established team and being like, hey, this right here, I don't know, like, this doesn't seem like I like where we're going. There's a lot of great things about it, but I think it can be better. And this is what I would like to change, is that, are y'all okay with doing this? And I think if you're going to do that, take the initiative of making the change first, and then bringing them the change side by side and showing them, like, this is why I made the change. I feel like this graph here was kind of confusing. I simplified it here, or maybe I broke it into two different graphs and I added some explanation or something. Then I also maybe had an online resource where they could go back and they had a quick review of this unit, this unit, this unit. It's like almost like a study guide. Like if this was like a final, like, hey, breaks it down real quick so that they can, oh yeah, supply and demand. Oh yeah, like, talking about costs, like your, was it kind of like your, God, what's it called? It's been a while since I've had economics. The
supply and demand.
well, your cost, like your cost, when you take your manufacturing costs, like your startup cost, your fixed cost, that you have to spread it out, like, and you're thinking like, well, I'm going to spread my fixed cost over my first 1,000 units, and that's going to be this. After that, I'm only my variable costs that are with it. It's no longer this startup initial cost.
But this has definitely been the most engaged the kids have been, like, for the year.
I felt like your front right group and your front left group, super engaged. I felt like your front right group is probably, but I feel like that middle group in the back is kind of like in the middle.
Yeah.
They're your forgotten group. They're your quiet kids that want to go under the radar.
Right.
And it's just like, I think, try to pull it out of them. Try to engage them more. Like, because I'm betting money anywhere from 1 out of 3 to 2 out of 3 of those kids are struggling in your class.
Right. And the thing is, they don't have a problem when I do talk to them. They don't have any issues like talking to me.
No.
One-on-one.
But it's in front of the group.
Right.
And they've got to get over that. Because, like, this is a small setting. Your class, I mean, was what, like 20 people?
It was 26 or so.
It didn't feel that big.
Yeah, it's not.
Maybe not.
We
Maybe it
had
wasn't
a
that
couple
day.
kids
I think, maybe that day it wasn't. Like, it didn't feel like a big class. It felt like inviting. It felt like a safe environment. I felt like there was no, the way you handled yourself was good. I appreciate the dad jokes. Like I do. I do.
Yeah.
As one who does that too and tries to make
Yeah.
them cringe, I do appreciate that stuff. Like trying to use humor in a good way to get them to open up and warm up and stuff like that. So I appreciate all that. And I also get like time of the day. This is fifth period for y'all. It's like right before lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a tough period to do. So, but like I said, like I felt like it was good. I felt, of course, I'm not there for every little thing. And what we talked about in our coaching session was, this was going back to last semester. We're talking about it's April. You're sitting down with a girl that has this laundry list of issues she's had.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently you have to get through all those issues to find out there's probably one thing that set her off in October. And then she's just been stewing on it to this point, and it's now become an issue because she's struggling, she's mad, she's upset, so she blames all this other stuff when a lot of the stuff could be like, here and there, like what I talked about, we take ownership for that, but some of that stuff is like she's having to learn how to navigate high school, and that's a tough situation. Whereas now you have seniors. The reason I'm bringing that up is because now you have seniors. These guys have learned that lesson for the most part.
Right.
Very rarely you're going to have a senior. You're going to have one or two, but they're going to be identified real quick. You're probably going to, you're going to know who they are. You're going to find them real quick. B, you're going to be told about them in advance.
Right.
Like a counselor's going to come up. Somebody's going to tell you like, hey, well, this is a kid we're trying to get across the stage. Like this is a kid that, or they're going to be sitting in your class in a good, I don't know if you've noticed this. I always look at like for my kids that I know that there's a hiccup. It's a 12th grade class for you, right? And they're classified as 11. What's going on?
Oh.
Immediately reclassification, right?
Yeah.
So those are the kids we want to keep an eye out for. But other than that, dude, I thought it was really good. I thought you were solid. I would say I don't think you have to wait on a project. If you think up front that it's not up to snuff, there's nothing in this world that says that you can't tweak it to what you think is best for your kids.
Right.
As long as you're staying within the scope of it, you're giving the project, you're giving the same grade that they are, you can tweak the requirements and be like, no, I don't necessarily, that's not the focus of this. This right here, that's a nice thing to do. Like, I'm just using a random example. The picture, drawing the picture. Yeah, that's cool, but like, I don't think that should be weighted, and have that conversation.
No.
Like, that should be worth 40% of their grade is their picture of their bust. Like, what are we doing here?
Like
Is this an art class? Like, let's tie this back. Like, I'm just using that as an example. Like, sometimes things, we have intentions at one point, and sometimes we're creatures of habits. Once we've made it and it went well, like, that may be what you're doing with your team is like, this has gone well, this project has gone well, so they haven't thought to go back and review it. And like, hey, is this really doing what we need it to do? And sometimes we outgrow stuff. Sometimes things change. Our standards change. It doesn't really apply to it anymore. Or the way we teach, or we have a good idea, or we see something somewhere. Like you were talking about how you use the Maine lobster one. That's great. Like I was like, can't believe I even pulled that out. We had not talked about that. That was totally organic.
That was once you left.
No.
Because I kind of saw the disconnect in my head, and I was like, they don't get it. I was like, oh, what's that food truck called?
Well, because you're talking about a store versus a food truck, and then like the clip you showed was so much about efficiency, which was neat talking about like.
But I should have showed that later, like 2 days later when I talked about like the end. Okay, now you've had 2 or 3 days to do this. Now we're gonna watch this clip and look. So when you look at your fixed costs, you need to look at like in your brain. You need to think about your efficiency. That's what I should have done is actually put that like 2-3 days later.
Well, and a lot of times, like what's cool about the Shark Tank thing is like they'll nitpick their stuff and their ideas. They're like, well, hey, actually, I think you're a good investment because I know you're getting this for your costs. Like you're being supplied here. I have a connection where I can get you that product that you need, or that your product that you need to make, like, or what is it called? Your materials, right? Like I can get your materials to you cheaper, so we can have a good partnership where I have the connections to get your costs down, which makes us more profitable because we're partnered together. And that's where that harmony comes in, like talking about, well, what does that look like? Like something, if you're starting out as a lone truck, that may not, you can't buy in bulk as much, but all of a sudden you're a fleet of trucks. That's what McDonald's did. Is McDonald's scaled, and that's where I would have tapped into. They went from one or two locations, like in a town, to all this, and they had this great idea. To all
And
of a
they went
sudden,
and bought the
they
land.
scaled.
Yeah,
and
because
then
they bought the land, so when you went in, you weren't having to buy your own land; they were buying it for you,
Right.
and you would get the lease. So
Right.
then, no matter what, over the U.S. and the world, like that, typically that value went up.
Yeah.
So it's like a safeguard.
well, and then you could also talk about other franchisees, things like that, and scaling. Look at Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's is another great example of they're producing their own products now. McDonald's, or not McDonald's, Walmart, HEB. As things start to scale, they start creating their own products that they can do it cheaper. They can do it all,
Right.
like HEB.
HEB's notorious for doing.
HEB came in and talked when I was in college. I was in business school, and they talked about how they were buying from this bakery, and because they started in San Antonio, they're buying from this bakery and everything. They were trying to negotiate a price point and everything. Well, the bakery, they were trying to get it cheaper. The bakery, there's something happening with the negotiations, and they didn't like where it was going. Well, there was this other bakery that went out of business. They bought that bakery. They started making their own products, and they started using that. So they started making their bread and their like certain
Right.
things that are staples. And they stopped
Yeah.
buying from this one bakery. They still bought specialty stuff, but they didn't buy. That became a different product line. So they're able to introduce a cheaper
Right.
price point in there and
Right.
sell in bulk,
They
but
bring
still
in-
make a
yeah,
profit.
They bring
Like,
in a lot of products, and they see what sells, and they see, oh, maybe it's this brand of coffee or this brand of whatever, and then they go and like, okay, now we're gonna make it ourselves.
well, and I know like when the kids were doing their thing, like now we're getting into nitty gritty on that stuff, but like it's such a cool, fun project because it makes my mind start thinking about like, okay, well, what product would you choose? Like, start challenging them on that. Like, I feel like this project, it's a great project. Like on straight up, like it's awesome that y'all have this, but. And because you can have so many good conversations with them, and you can tie it into all the stuff y'all been doing. But if you see that the things are there for the kids that are like they need the support, make sure that like you add those
Right.
things in there. Okay.
Right.
So you need to like feel empowered to be able to do that.
Right.
Okay. So, but anyway, any questions for me?
Good.
Yeah. But otherwise, dude, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I thought it was solid. I thought you did a good job. Don't let my negativity
it was
get you
good.
down or
It
anything
was
like
good.
that. But like, no, they're it's good. It's dude, you're fine. Don't let that stuff last
Yeah.
semester get you down either.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, it happens. Like there's sometimes like especially with your younger kids, they can't differentiate between your style and they think it's you. They think they come at you, the person, not realize like, hey, it's my style, it's my personalities. That's what's like you're struggling with. Like it's not that I'm a bad person or I'm doing anything against you, but you focus so much on that there's this friction there. You don't realize like, oh, their style of teaching doesn't go with my style of learning.
Right.
Like, like it's one of those things they get frustrated and they just don't know how to handle it. And that's our job, is to also shepherd them through that and have those conversations. Sometimes they're hard, especially if they wait till a long time and they've got all these things, they're pent up. But anyway, all right, brother.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm gonna end it there.